Welcome back, guys, to episode 4 of the Lift Lounge podcast.
This week we're going to talk about Gymtimidation, do's and don'ts of your journey, and try to give you an overview of what you should be doing when you start out. So,
yeah, complete beginner rundown. Shout out to Katie for the name of this one. But yeah, like Leon said, we're just going to run through some do's and don'ts and try and give you a little bit of an insight into kind of starting your journey. So I think we should just dive straight into it, man.
Yeah, and seeing as it's a beginner, we should probably start with the beginner stuff. So if you are a complete beginner or you've just started out training in general, there's so many pitfalls you can fall into. So probably good to start off on what you should be trying to do when you lay out your first plan of what you're going to do.
Yeah, so with that, we'll probably start off with planning, consistency, goal setting. So I would start and maybe work backwards a little bit, like where do you want to be, and then kind of reverse engineer it and think, okay, how can I get there? So first thing I'd be asking yourself is, what's your goal? Like, what do you want to either look like, or how do you want to perform, or what actually is it that you want to achieve, and then go about setting your plan for that.
And also that with the goal that you set or any plan that you make, you've got to be realistic. So if you're looking to add 40 kilos of muscle in 12 months, it's just not going to happen. But maybe you are very, very skinny, very light, and putting on a amount of weight, it's maybe best not to put a number to it and attach a number to it and aim for a goal look that you should be trying to achieve in a reasonable amount of time. It's also good as well to try compare other people's journeys, which is quite interesting one to say, because a lot of people say don't compare yourself, but it could be good for making a goal that's actually achievable, that you might roughly fall into too. So if you know someone who has had a transformation like you or been through the process, then you know roughly, right, that amount of time, that amount of effort, this is how well they did. That's something that's probably reasonably achievable for me.
Yeah, have a look at a few people that have maybe been down a similar path that you want to go down, and then think, okay, like what have they been able to achieve, and then think, okay, well, if they've been able to do that, then I'll probably be able to achieve something relatively similar if I can put in the same amount of effort across the board. But let's ship it right back to like the very, very basics, and let's say that you've never been in a gym before. So a gym can be a pretty intimidating place, hence the name of this episode, Gymtimidation. So,
two big guys like us in there, man, grunting around. So obviously it's pretty scary.
I call myself big yet. But maybe let's go over some tips and stuff if someone's listening to this thinking, I want to get into the gym, I want to start, and I've literally never been in a gym before. What is some stuff that you would maybe think of straight off the bat?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know about you. The first time I ever went to a gym was with a friend. So, especially it's probably best if it's someone that has actually started training as opposed to just two headless chickens running around in there. But having someone who roughly knows what they're at or has been at least a couple of times can be good. Break your ice into entering that space and realizing it's not as big and scary as you thought it was going to be. And everyone there really doesn't care about what you're doing and are just cracking on with what they're doing. So going in, making sure you know what you're going to do for that session and having a friend there.
Yeah, so first time I went to the gym was with my pals. Like went down after school. There's a group of us and kind of just messed around a little bit and tried to have fun with it. So yeah, definitely be going with a friend at least, or even like a group of friends, and you just can all go in and kind of encourage each other. I think is always going to be a good idea. And then, like you said, people that are in the gym, although it might be quite intimidating, it might be quite scary and whatnot, especially if there is like bigger people in the gym. That might be quite weird to say that, but it can be quite intimidating. But everyone's in the gym to improve on themselves. Like that is why literally every single person is going into the gym, because they want to walk out being slightly better than what they were walking in. They want to go in and make improvements. So I think being focused on the fact that everyone's in there for the same reason, everyone's in there to improve, everyone's in there to work on themselves, and no one's necessarily going to be that focused on you. Not that you're not great or anything, but everyone's going in the gym to work on themselves.
Could be good as well to actually speak to people in there, get to know some of the people, make some friendly faces in there. And a lot of those big guys who seemed as scary and intimidating that day one are probably the guys who more than likely want to give you advice on what to do and what not to do. Now, their advice may be absolute balls, but it still could be good to speak to people, because then it's going to make that place a little bit less scary.
Yeah, and I think you get that atmosphere at smaller, more like private based gyms. I think the larger, more commercial side of things is going to be harder to find that sort of community.
Yeah, every
based
session there's a
aspect.
new group of people. Every hour there's a different group of people.
Yeah.
So
I think going somewhere a little bit more private where you do maybe see the same faces and you do get a little bit more of like a group community, a little bit of a friendlier aspect can be good, especially if you've never been to a gym and you're maybe thinking, oh, I don't know what gym to go to, I don't know what gym to join. I'd actually maybe look at like a smaller, more private based gym where
support your local.
you're gonna get to know everyone on like a personal basis and it's not just a face. You'll actually see the same people, build up a friendship there, build up a community there. Because once you're friendly and comfortable with someone, you know, asking them questions is going to be easier. The ability for them to like give you advice as well, so they're going to feel way more comfortable giving you advice if they know you. I think that might be a better move for definitely at least some people, to be honest.
And when you're starting anything new, especially the gym, you know, you're going to have very low confidence with what you're doing because you're an absolute newbie. You know, you've no idea what you're doing, no idea what's going on, and no idea what the other people around you are doing. So understandably, your confidence and competence are going to be low. So one of the best things you can do when you start out is just consistently go. As long as you're going consistently, then it will get better over time. Your confidence will rise. Your confidence will rise. So consistently go. Make sure you stick to whatever plan that you've set. Maybe it's 3 times a week. Make sure you're always there for that 3 times a week.
Well, like you said there, actually having something to do when you go into the gym, like having a plan. One of the things that can result in you wandering like a headless chicken is like not knowing what to do, not knowing what movement to go and do, not knowing what machine to go and do, what exercise to go and do. If you've got a plan in front of you and you're doing the same thing for each day, like you said, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, if you know what you're going in and you know what you're doing, you're just going to get on with it a lot more. You're not going to give yourself that chance for doubt to creep in or uncertainty to creep in. You're going to actually have some structure, so you're going to feel a little bit more confident in what you're doing.
And if you don't know what plan to make or anything like that, just, you know, reach out for coaching probably. You know, that's probably a good shout.
So let's chat about making a plan then. How would you go about making a plan? What's the first couple of things that you would look at?
Right. So obviously if you know what you want to do then, if you know what your goals are, it'd probably be good for us to pick like an example that is quite generalized, like a lot of people want when they first start. So a lot of people when they start either are overweight, want to lose weight, or they're underweight and they want to start being bigger. So probably let's do the bigger one because fat loss is talked about enough. But if you wanted to get bigger, so you're going to pick, you're going to do exercises that are going to fit that. So you want to get a good base of exercises for each body group. You can split these sessions any which way. Once you start speaking to people, you'll realize everyone does a different kind of split. There is no one true split. It's just the split that you enjoy and the way you like training. So don't be afraid of hopping around a few different splits for a while, because then you can find what works for you and what suits you. As long as you find that, stick to it then. What kind of thing would you want to start with?
I would strip it right back to the very basics. So I don't know about you, but when I first started getting into the gym, if someone told me that I could go every single day, then I would have went every single day. We need to look at what's realistic for your lifestyle. So there's not going to be like 4 days is better than 5 or 6 days is better than 5. I would look at your week and think, okay, how often can you actually get in the gym, right? So even if you want to go 5 times, you might not be able to go 5 times, like due to your lifestyle, due to your commitments, due to your work schedule, whatever it might be. So pick a certain amount of days that you can confidently tick off. So whether that is 2 days, 3 days, you can always build up from there. So, you know, a lot of people come on the team and go, you know, I really, really want to get into the gym 5 times across the week, but right now 5 times might just slightly be pushing it. Well, I say, why don't we start off on 3 or 4 days and see how you get on for the first couple of weeks? And if you think you can up it to 5, then we can always up it to 5. I think it's a little bit easier to add days on and subtract. If you start with like 6 days and you're burning the candle at both ends, then you're gonna burn out, and then maybe a little bit harder to step back to 5 days or 4 days. If you start off with, let's say, 4 days and you're absolutely crushing it and you're building up some momentum and you're feeling confident and you think, do you know what, I actually have some time to go up to 5, it's a little bit easier to then make that step up to 5 because you've already built that momentum. You're not having to take a step back. So I would identify how many days can you definitely get in the gym, and then that's what I'd base your split upon in terms of like muscle groups you want to target and stuff like that, because then that's going to give you the basis of what you need in terms of volume across the week. So first off, identify how often you can get in the gym and not how often you want to be in the gym.
Next thing, you're obviously going to have some level of understanding of the basics, like figure out what rep ranges are, what they mean, make sure you know what tempo is and why that's important, and then figuring out what volume to do. So what I personally would say for most beginners is that the more times you're going to do something, the better you're going to get at it. So I personally, if I had a beginner that was joining, I would be going more of a high volume approach for someone who's new to the gym, because that's going to give them more attempts at doing an exercise and getting the basics down, where they're going to learn that exercise and understand it better from doing it over and over and over with more repetitions. Obviously, someone who's just starting out isn't going to have a great mind-muscle connection. They've never used these muscles for these things in these ways. So that more volume could also help with getting more of a pump and understanding what they're trying to achieve from each set.
And you're probably not going to be able to train hard enough if you're just starting out anyway. So you're probably going to need a little bit more volume, and you can probably get away with a little bit more volume. You don't need to worry about potentially doing too much and like over training, because the threshold that you can train at is probably going to be pretty low. So like you said, going in with probably a little bit of a higher volume approach. And what we mean by that is literally just more sets in the gym pretty much. Maybe not necessarily more movements, but just more work across the movements that you have, so that you can focus on, like you said, improving the quality of that work. So understanding that you can probably get away with doing a little bit more, because your training ability is not going to be there to the point you have to worry about overtraining. Then as that gets better and better and better, then you could actually probably take volume down. So starting volume a little bit higher, getting really good at it, and then maybe tailoring that volume back down as you get better, because you're going to be able to create more of a stimulus over less work as you improve at doing each exercise for each muscle group, etc.
You don't want to end up doing like a circuit of each of the exercises in the gym for chest. Like a lot of people will just walk around the machines and note down which ones say chest on them, and then they'll go and do them all. But that isn't what's going to grow your chest. You don't have to do every exercise in the gym that's possible for chest. You have to tailor it down. Otherwise you're going to be there all day.
You see that all the time. Even with like legs, you'll see people just going around and just doing every leg machine that they see.
Yeah.
They'll just start off with both or all the calf exercises. Then they'll move on to all the machines, the leg extensions, the curls. Then they'll go and do squats and leg press and lunges. Yeah. They'll go and do them all. This probably isn't so much beginner, but look at the function of a muscle and then just go through a couple of different movements for the function of each muscle group. That's probably getting off the topic of beginner.
We bet. The only time that you should be doing all the exercises in a gym for a muscle group is if your gym is tiny. Like if you don't have that many options, then of course, absolutely, you're more than likely going to have to make the most of what you have in terms of kit. But yeah, so probably move into the next thing. Should we do some foods?
Yeah, let's go into nutrition.
Yeah, so a lot of people, when they first start out training, they'll watch Rich Piana, man. They'll watch all these terrible videos on nutrition, think, oh God, this guy's huge and he only eats chicken and rice, man. So do I have to start eating chicken and rice? Absolutely not. The thing that you should be trying to prioritize when you're starting out, and if we're going to stay on topic for beginner and trying to gain muscle, you're going to have to be aware if you just hit your protein goal and you've got strength training in there, you're going to grow. But to optimize that, you should be trying to prioritize getting a decent amount of protein in. An easy formula for that is 2 grams per pound of body weight. You could even go as low as like 1.6 or 1.5 grams. Even 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, if you're really struggling, is still going to be enough for you to get some muscle growth.
Yeah, 1 gram is going to be sufficient. There's actually some research like less than 1 gram, which I probably wouldn't recommend, but I would just tailor it right back and just think, right, if you're 180 pounds, just aim for 180 grams of protein, because if you're a complete beginner, you've probably not tracked protein, you've probably not tracked food, which I think is a really important thing to touch on. Like, do you need to track your food straight from the get-go? Like, would you recommend someone track their food straight from the get-go?
Straight from the get-go. I mean, it would be good to learn, but if you have any issues with like eating disorders or anything like that, I'd probably steer clear from tracking foods immediately until you've got a good relationship with food in general. But I think tracking foods and stuff can overcomplicate it. I think if you write out a plan and know what the calories are of this plan, it's good to stick to just a diet plan, because that will get you used to the structure. Okay, I'm trying to eat 5 meals a day. These are the 5 meals. And then once you've understood, right, actually the whole point of me eating these 5 meals a day is I'm trying to get a decent hit of protein in each meal. and I'm trying to get a decent amount of carbs pre and post workout. Okay, now I'm starting to understand why it's structured this way. Now I could start tracking it my own way. Because if it fits your macros, you might end up eating all your carbs for breakfast because you wanted to. And then your workout, this workout wasn't as good as yesterday, but because you ate all your carbs pre and post. So it's obviously going to feel better if you have all those carbs available, that fuel available for your session. So yeah.
Yeah, and tracking food can feel quite restrictive, especially if you've not done it before. It can feel like, it's taken maybe too much of a grip on like your lifestyle and your routines and whatnot. So if you're someone that's thinking, well, I don't actually really want to track my food because it does feel quite restrictive, what I would recommend is maybe tracking for like a week and just coming up with a meal plan that you enjoy. So if you make sure that you track your food for a certain day, let's just say you've got a meal plan that you really enjoy, you've laid your meals out, you look forward to each of those meals, and you track a couple days worth, then just stick to that meal plan and then not track like food. Like you should realistically only need to track food until you're confident with the meals, you know that they're getting you to your goals, you enjoy them, you look forward to them, you're eating enough across the day. And if you just stick to that plan and you don't need to track it anymore, you just need to prep your food. And then that's obviously when prepping your food and stuff can come in really handy. But I think, again, you maybe going a step before that is, what do you enjoy? A lot of people think, what foods do I need to give up? I want to lose fat. Do I need to give up chocolate? Do I need to give up pizza? Whatever it might be. Like, realistically, no. And I think we're going to dive into this in a little bit more detail in terms of like what foods you should be picking. But you should be keeping the foods that you enjoy in your plan to somewhat, or else you're just going to end up coming off your plan. The cravings for them are going to be too strong. You're going to feel like you're suffering. You're going to feel like you're depriving yourself of the foods that you enjoy. And then it's only really a ticking time bomb until you go and binge out on those foods. Yeah. So do you want to touch on that as well?
Yeah, well, this is every fitness influencer's favorite topic to talk about. Is like, you can, if you love eating chocolate, why would you give it up? Why would you stop eating chocolate? But obviously they're missing out one point there where you can't eat chocolate all day. Now, you have to be a wee bit realistic and realize that this has to be in moderation compared to what you would have been before. You're not 10, you can't go down to the cupboards and raid like all of the jammy Dodgers, man, and eat them all in one go while you're sitting playing Xbox. So instead, you'll have to think, oh, right, I do enjoy this thing. I could eat it post-workout as a treat. So the foods, though, with like what foods you can and can't eat, it doesn't overly matter. Now, obviously, there are some foods that are better than others and are going to serve your goals better than others. But one thing a lot of people always neglect is that their mental health does play a big role in how food affects them. So, if you enjoy your Sunday roast with your family, just make sure that you keep that in. If you enjoy certain types of foods and snacks, just make sure you're still sprinkling them in there. They just can't be as constant.
Yeah, so the devil's in the dosage. Like, I've said this so many times before, but I'll say it again. Like, I like chocolate. I'll have 85% dark chocolate, which, don't get me wrong, not a lot of people will like that type of chocolate, but I do, and that's going to have a little bit more benefits for what I'm trying to do. But I have that every single day. But the only thing is I don't have the whole bar. I have like 10 to 15, maybe sometimes 20 grams a day, which is super, super manageable and super easy for me to track. So it's not so much the actual food, it's how much of that food you're having. Could you lose weight having like a small Domino's once a week? Probably. Would you find it a lot harder to lose weight if you had a large Domino's every single day? Yeah, you'd have a much, much harder
that would be a nightmare.
So it's in how much you're having those foods, the frequency of those foods, the quantity of those foods. But that's when having a plan comes in really, really handy. So you can still make sure that you're ticking off those cravings. You're having maybe a little bit of what you enjoy every single day, as well as more balanced foods and like whole foods, which I think is what we kind of want to go into as well.
If you're coming from obviously we're probably talking a lot as if like teenager to adult, where you're making smarter food choices. But if at any point in your life that you've had a phase where you've been eating absolutely terribly and you go to starting to eat well, so that's obviously what's going to happen when you start eating on plan, make a plan that suits your needs and is full of whole foods. You'll quickly realize after a week of doing it, just stick to like one full week where you eat that, you'll realize, wow, I feel amazing. Like I feel really good. Whereas like you were saying, eat a full Domino's pizza every day, like you could actually still lose weight doing it, but that would be all you could eat in the day and you were going to feel terrible. You're going to eventually not want to do it anymore. It's going to be more of a challenge than just eating the meals you were meant to be eating. And in terms of foods we should eat, which we should probably get on to, Big Eddie would have something to say on this.
Yes, he would. He'd probably have a fit if you've seen even my diet, to be fair. There's probably loads of stuff he'd pick out from my diet that's
I'd love to see it like a shop
horrible.
filled with foods that he only recommends. It would be like one aisle.
It'd be pretty impossible. But I think the overall message that he's trying to get across is he's trying to get a positive message across. And I can kind of understand where he's coming from. Maybe just too extreme for most people to follow. But let's have a wee chat about like whole foods and stuff like that, and because that's a bit of a hot topic right now as well, I would say. But I would say when it comes to like whole foods, it's like one ingredient foods, is going to be they're pretty flexible with the meals, so you can do quite a lot with them. They're pretty easy to prep. Most of the time, you can make them taste pretty decent as well, and they're obviously not processed like ultra processed food. They're going to be easy to digest and things like that as well. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I'd say whole foods versus highly processed foods in your diet, especially as you start to realize like you're eating more protein, you're eating maybe more volume of food than you're used to, because highly processed foods are highly caloric, but there's not a lot of volume. So that'll be a switch up for you. But eating these whole sources are also cheaper in most cases. Like if you start eating chicken, veg, and different types of carb sources that are whole foods, that is going to be way cheaper than eating, a Domino's pizza every single day. So those kind of switches are like great. And I think that should build like the 70% of your diet for the week. 70% of your diet should be perfect, really good food. And that should be more than enough to get you the micronutrient like that you need throughout your day. Other 30% could be processed foods, it could be your snacks, could be other stuff like that. You're still going to make great progress with a 70-30 split like that.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with that. And I would say, like, try to base your main meals around those whole foods, because like you said there, you're going to get more volume. So more volume of food is going to leave you feeling a little bit more satiated. It's going to be make you feel a little bit better about that meal, just because there's going to be more food on the plate, right? So it's going to be a little bit nicer to have. Like you said, if you put effort into those foods as well, you can make them taste really good. Like, you have flexibility in terms of like what you want to prep. So around those main meals, let's just say like lunch and dinner, stick to maybe like a whole food carb source, and then just like a simple carb source and a simple protein source. And you can do so much of that. There's so much variety and so much flexibility of that. It's easy to prep. It's easy to like batch cook for the rest of the week, so you can be ahead of schedule. It's easy to taste good as well, if, like I said, if you put in a little bit more effort. So I would, like you said, probably a 70-30% split with that, and that means you can still have a little bit of flexibility there as well.
And should probably mention why we want them to eat whole foods. So the reason that you should be prioritizing whole foods over highly processed foods is that any food that isn't whole is going to cause more inflammation. If you have acne or any other kinds of issues, or you have bad digestion and you maybe don't realize you do, maybe you're farting all the time, you can't even drink milk without it flying through you. All of these things are causing a lot of inflammation in your body, and that's not going to be great in terms of recovery, your strength, and just mental clarity in general. But your whole body is pretty much like a machine at the end of the day, and what you're putting into it is the fuel source. And if your fuel source is absolute crap, you're going to feel like crap, you're going to operate like crap. So the more information that you hold, the worse your day is going to be. The less information you hold, life's going to be easier.
It just comes down to like stress, I think. So a lot of people will think about stress and just think about like maybe like work stress and hitting deadlines.
Yeah,
and
not
stuff like
oxidative
that.
Stress.
But all like the inflammation, things like that, you're just putting your body into a stress state. When your body's stressed, your mental clarity, sleep, performance, recovery, all those factors are going to take a hit. And if all those factors are taking a hit, then progress is going to take a hit. They're all kind of linked together. So you're really just putting your body into a bit of a stressed environment if you are consuming, highly processed foods all the time. It's just maybe not the stress that you'd think of straight away.
So probably come into the last big point, I'd say. Bullshit supplements that you should probably avoid.
Yes.
So
do it.
the first one that comes to mind for me, branched chain amino acids, BCAAs. For anyone who doesn't know, anything that says amino acids in it is a protein source. Simple as that. Essential amino acids, as the name suggests, are essential. You need them. They're very good. You're going to get most of them from your food. Branched chain amino acids, You're going to get most of those from your food. They're not essential for muscle growth, recovery. Supplementing them into your diet is absolutely pointless because you're going to get them anyway from your diet. So, spending that extra 10, 15 quid on a supplement and thinking you're doing something great for your body, you're just wasting money.
Yeah. Kind of touched on the lad. Oh my God. Get it out, Keaton. But we kind of spoke about it on the last podcast. And you've kind of covered it there, to be fair. But branching amino acids, protein's just made up of amino acids. So if you're getting a complete protein source, then you're going to cover pretty much all of your branched chain amino acids anyway. So the need to supplement them is just not necessary. I would say EAAs are maybe a little bit more. You could argue to have EAAs because you're getting all the essential ones that you maybe might not be able to get from some food sources. And I think I said on the last podcast as well, like leucine's the main one that you're looking for there. But if you're eating a good diet, full protein sources, whole foods, all the good stuff we've been chatting about to this podcast, BCAAs are pretty pointless. But why don't we go into test boosters and fat burners?
Well, for those that don't know, Big Keaton here takes loads of test boosters. That's why he's a fake natty. Yeah. But basically, my opinion on test boosters is like, at the end of the day, taking test boosters versus taking testosterone, what is going to make the difference? Testosterone. Taking test boosters, even if it increases your testosterone for 20%, you'd have to know by taking blood tests every day if that's being consistent in the blood every day. And there is obviously some studies for some that show it does have a significant impact, but are you going to notice that impact? Is it going to be so much so that it's worth dropping 40 quid a month on a supplement? In my opinion, no. But for maybe the placebo effect, which maybe you can touch on more because you actually take them and I don't.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I feel like they're a bit of a waste of money.
Right, so I'm going to defend myself a little bit here because I don't take any of these like testo things that you see from like home bargains
Testo
and
boost.
all that. That's not the stuff that Leon's talking about. So the stuff that I take is called Tonga Ali and Fedoja, which is been in quite a lot of studies, especially like Andrew Huberman's probably the one that's like hyped this up. So if you don't know who Andrew Huberman is, look him up, get to know him. But they've seen pretty significant increases, to be honest, in testosterone levels across the studies that they've done there, and that's like naturally occurring. So I'm pretty sure you get it from like plants. So I'll take that, and it's more so for the placebo effect, to be honest. It's like, do I notice a difference when I take it? Maybe like very, very subtly. However, do I notice a big impact in the placebo because I know that I'm taking it? I can tell myself when I'm going into my sessions and stuff, almost like a little bit of like a boost, like, oh, I'm taking this. It's seen good results in studies. Therefore, the placebo effect I get from that's actually pretty decent. But the ones I would be avoiding are the ones from like your home bargains and maybe your Holland and Barrett, which isn't the scientifically backed and tested ones. The ones that's just going to be pretty.
And even if it is from home bargains or something, and if you're buying something cheap, the reality is that the dosing of the supplements in it might have Fedoja and Tonkat Ali in it, but the dosages that it has in it are like 1/100th of what it's meant to be for the effective dose. So again, but placebo in general, placebo might give you the 40% boost, and the test booster might give you the 45% boost. And if for those that don't know, if you tell someone that they're taking a placebo, it will still work. The placebo effect will still take. So, is it worth that 40 quid when I could just give you a sugar pill and say this is great for testosterone? Maybe.
So, wanting to touch on fat burners as well. So, like, what typically is a fat burner? A fat burner that you get from the shops is actually typically just caffeine with an appetite suppressant. So, all that's actually going on there is you are not feeling as hungry and you're getting a caffeine hit, so you're going to be expending more energy and you're not going to be eating as much calories. So that's really all like the ones from the shops are. So realistically, you could get the same effect not taking that fat burner if you just disciplined with your diet and don't eat, and maybe have a coffee or something like that. It's not as if like these fat burners you're going to take and all of a sudden the fat is going to melt off your physique. That is definitely not what's happening there. So I would say they are 100% worth avoiding.
Well, fat burners in general, for those that don't know, there is absolutely nothing apart from cutting your skin open and sucking it out that burns fat. That's the only way that you can burn fat. There's not any supplement on earth that will burn your fat. The only thing that burns fat is putting yourself in a position where you're burning more calories than you're intaking. So, that's exactly what caffeine does. Raises your heart rate. That'll expend more calories. Now, probably should touch on the last one, and then we can close up.
Yeah, so what would we recommend buying? Now, the first thing I'm going to say here might be a little bit controversial, because when I say it, you don't actually need to have this, but I would recommend everyone have one on board, and that's going to be a protein powder. Now, why would I say that? It's because people are often lacking flexibility within their lifestyle. People are busy. People might not be great at picking whole food sources and things like that. So the amount of flexibility and how easy it is to get protein in from a powder is like, I reckon everyone should have a protein powder, even just as a backup, even if you're not using it every single day. Because let's say you're busy one day and you want to get a quick protein hit where you can have a shake. Let's say you're not feeling a shake, you can put it in a yogurt, you can put it in oats, you can use it for so much like flexibility in so many different foods, and it's just a really, really easy way to get your protein in, especially if you're finding it hard to get it from whole foods. So it's not necessary 100%, but I would really recommend people have one as a backup.
One that I'd recommend, and this is probably like across the board, top to bottom UK, everyone should be taking vitamin D3. So you get that naturally from the sun, but where we live, there is no sun. So, and especially many of us don't spend all day outside anyway. You will still get vitamin D through the clouds, but there's no one who's sitting outside 9 hours a day, cloud bathing. So yeah, vitamin D3, definitely a supplement you should get. It helps with a lot of things, especially your immune function, but it's also can help with increasing your muscle growth and recovery, but not so much. But across the board, definitely a supplement you should probably be taking.
Helps, man.
Yeah.
The last one I would definitely recommend people buying, especially if you're pretty serious about seeing performance increases, is going to be creatine. Not just for the physical performance aspects, but also the mental aspects and things like that as well. So creatine, where would I start with this? I would probably just go, if you're a complete beginner, 5 grams per day. If you're taking things a little bit more seriously, go for 1 gram per 10 kilos of body weight. So if you're 70 kilos, I would go for 7 grams. But does the quality and stuff like that matter? Probably not. Where you get it from, probably not at all.
As long as it says creatine monohydrate.
Yeah, as long as it says creatine, as long as the serving size is at least 5 grams. Some of them will maybe say 3 grams and stuff, so watch out for that. But for physical performance, for mental performance, there's a lot of good research on brain health and stuff like that from creatine as well. So if you've been put off by it before, then maybe that's not a reason to have it. There's actually no studies really directly linked to hair loss and stuff like that as well with creatine, which a lot of people are scared about. So if you're scared about that, I wouldn't really worry about that either, to be honest. So creatine, vitamin D3, a good protein powder, and then you could probably tick off a couple others, but that's the main.
Everything else is going to be specific to what your needs are. I wouldn't give a supplement of iron to someone who doesn't need iron. Who's deficient in iron is obviously going to need it. So, but that's a good base. Everyone needs it.
Yeah, those 3 I would say have on board.
Right, and that will wrap up this podcast for today.
Thank you for listening to episode 4 on Gymtimidation. Hopefully, if you're a beginner, that gives you a little bit more direction on where to go. And we'll be covering some of these topics in our podcast anyway, so keep on listening.